Before you say, oh, it's all genetics, I get it. There's part of this that is true. Genetics do dictate muscle growth, it dictates body fat distribution. Genetics are why my quads don't grow past a certain point. I never made the quad gains that I ever wanted due to genetics, so I'm pretty aware of that. That said, are my quads much better than when I got started at the gym? Absolutely. So I do think we can always make progress despite of our genetics. With that out of the way, I want to talk about 5 things that I have done to build my abs. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Eleni, IFBB Bikini Pro. So let's go straight to number 1 thing that I've done to build my abs, which is compound lifts. I've done very little isolated abs exercises because, like I said, my quads and my lower body were my priority when I started lifting. And I saw a huge difference when I started doing CrossFit. At some point during my fitness journey, I was kind of getting burned out with the gym, so I decided to do CrossFit. And I've done CrossFit for 2 years only. During this time, it was when I started getting comments about my abs from the other girls. And I think there's a few things about that. One is because that was when I let go of bulking and trying to obsessively gain weight through food and junk food. So my body fat was lower then. I also started doing more cardio with CrossFit naturally instead of just lifting weights at the gym. But there is something to be said about compound lifts, which is what I started focusing on when I started doing CrossFit. And you can just look at those CrossFit athletes. Do you think they're doing isolated abs work? Of course not. They're just lifting an insane amount of weight, and I'm pretty sure they're not focused on their abs, they're just focused on gaining strength, and yet they have the most amazing abs I have ever seen. I think that it's due to compound lifting. That's pretty much what I've done most of my life, trying to, build my glutes and build my quads. What I didn't expect to happen is that I was going to, with that, also be able to build my abs, and I think that's something that people overlook a lot when they're getting started. Number 2 is nutrition, and I think about nutrition there is this consensus that you do have to diet to have visible abs. However, I hate that phrase, abs are made in the kitchen, because I think the way people see it is that if you starve yourself enough, you're going to have visible abs. If you want a 6-pack, that's not true, because you need to be fueling your body so you can gain muscle. So how are you going to gain muscle and build a 6-pack if you're constantly starving yourself? I do feel like that phrase would be correct if people looked at it as eating healthy is what makes you build a 6-pack, which is what I'm getting to here. I think prioritizing whole foods, I think there is a healthy balance there between allowing yourself to have, cheat days or cheat meals, whatever works for you. But prioritizing whole foods, I think, is key to making lean gains. Like I said, I tried to dirty bulk my way into gaining muscle, and it was awful, honestly, because I was feeling awful most of the time. I couldn't lift well at the gym because I was feeling so tired all the time. I don't think bulking, especially dirty bulking, is the way to go when you're trying to make gains. I think focusing on getting enough calories, but also focusing on the quality of foods is the most important. Your body is going to be optimized when it's getting enough nutrients. And I'm not talking only about macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. I'm also talking about micronutrients, vitamins, minerals. Those are the things that your body is going to be responding to. So there could be some truth to abs are made in the kitchen, but not the way most people read it, not through starving yourself, but by eating whole foods, by eating quality foods. Number 3 is managing stress and getting good sleep. I hated when people told me when I was stressed out, just be less stressed. How, right? But hear me out. I think there are a few small habit changes that we can implement here and there to try to be less stressed and get better sleep. Look at your habits now. What can you do to improve your sleep? Maybe limit screen time when it's closer to bedtime. maybe, do some meditation to lower your stress, maybe try and incorporate yoga if you like it, or something along those lines. It's about the small habit changes, and just going back to the previous point, eating healthier foods also very much affect our hormones. So that could be another small change that you can incorporate. Maybe incorporate veggies in one of your meals. Yeah, I know it's easier said than done, but it's worth a try. Number 4 is mastering the eccentric, or the slow burn, doing the slow negatives when you're performing an exercise, whatever the exercise is, even if you're doing isolated exercises. Just to be clear here, I do isolated exercises only twice a week. That's enough for me. But I like doing isolated exercises, and you may like it too, and there's no problem with it, right? I do like to focus on doing slow negatives because that's how you make the exercise more challenging. I did try to incorporate weights at some point in my abs routine. I didn't love it because I'm a person that have 1001 back issues, so I prefer to do everything with body weight only when it comes to isolated abs exercises. So if that's your case too, I highly encourage you to start focusing on those slow negatives. So that's when you get the most out of the workout, and I think that's something that people usually overlook because they're so focused in doing, let's say, 100 crunches or something crazy like that. So they're not focused on the quality of the exercise, but more focused on numbers, and that's when I think people get lost, when they start obsessing over numbers over the quality of the exercise. And last one, number 5, is active bracing, or the internal shield technique, and I think that applies to when you're performing exercises, but also in general in life. That may sound silly for some of you, but one thing that I used to do to force myself to have better posture and encourage me to brace my core was to wear crop tops. And I still do that because when you are more exposed, you feel more self-aware of your core, and you may not want to do that, but just being more aware of your posture, being more aware of your core, eventually that becomes second nature and you're not going to be thinking about it anymore. And posture alone is also very important for you to prevent injuries and soreness and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I think that's something that people don't usually talk about, but I also think that's something that's very important. And let's be honest, we also use aesthetics as a motivator, and there's nothing wrong with it. But you also want to be looking good out there, right? You don't want to just look good for the photo when you're just sucking, but you want to be looking good all the time. So that's a good way to motivate yourself to just, bracing your core, and then that becomes second nature. Be aware when you're performing exercise, brace your core. So yeah, those are things that I have done. Let me know what you think in the comments, what have worked best for you. I would like to hear from your experience as well, and you can exchange what works for us and maybe try new things. I'm very new here on YouTube, so I'm very open to feedback. As long as it's nice and constructive feedback, please let me know here in the comments. If you have something mean to say, get out. Thank you for watching this video, and let me know what else you want to see here on my channel. See you next week.